Yeah, welcome in, welcome back. This is a unusual live. I'm gonna do a live real quick to kind of give my thoughts on last night's game 2 in the NBA Finals, and so we're gonna talk about that. And real quick, we're gonna give a little reaction on the Dan Hurley LA Lakers thing. So yeah, we're gonna do that. But before we do it, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, so like I said, and as you can see by the thumbnail, this is going to be a pretty quick one. This is not going to be the normal lengthy live episode, but definitely wanted to get on here and give my thoughts on last night's game 2 and how I kind of see the rest of the finals playing out. But before we get to that, I definitely wanted to touch on this Dan Hurley LA Lakers thing, and of course, being a Celtics fan and seeing the Celtics in the finals, and now, obviously looking at the Lakers being the Celtics' main competition pretty much for their entire existence in the NBA. Now we see that they need a head coach because they fired Darvin Ham, as you know, at the end of the season, and so we got that going on, and obviously. The whole thing was supposed to be this big push for JJ Redick, and we were hearing the reporting that JJ Redick was the leader in the clubhouse, and that they being the Lakers and JJ Redick were looking at potential members of his staff because it was highly likely he was going to get the job. I did some shows and some segments on live shows about that, kind of talking about how I thought that was a bad look, how basically I felt like the Mind the Game podcast with him and LeBron was basically an audition for him to get the coaching job by showing his X's and O's acumen, and basically being an audition for being a head coach without actually interviewing. And so I saw all of that. I thought it would be a bad move just on the strength of he would probably end up being like a LeBron puppet, and that wouldn't play well, and you would see division in the locker room, et cetera, et cetera. So that was how I felt about that. But then out of nowhere, I guess it was Friday, we saw the name Dan Hurley come up, back-to-back defending national champion, head coach of the UConn Huskies. And so I said, wow, this is interesting. I don't know how I feel about this. Obviously, Dan Hurley, he's a champion. He's an intense guy. He's an outstanding coach. So far, he's been a champion on every level he's coached on. He was a champion in high school. He was a champion in college. And then the Lakers were trying to woo him and entice him to come to the NBA, which is a stated goal of his. He said that in the past. And so they were trying to make him the best offer that they could in terms of making him their next head coach. And again, this was another situation I thought wouldn't be good for Dan Hurley. Number one, rookie NBA head coach. Number two, kind of a yeller and a screamer and a really animated control type guy. It's a lot of college and high school coaches are. We heard the great Gino Ariemo on the Dan Patrick show last week, and he said that Dan Hurley runs the UConn program like he ran his high school program, and we know that's not going to fly very far in the NBA when you're dealing with all these guys who are multimillionaires, et cetera, et cetera. And so Dan Hurley went out to LA over the weekend, I guess on Friday, and he went to sit with them and talk with them and kind of receive their offer, and then he would have made a decision by today. And it's funny, today's the 10th, so that means Friday was the 7th. And J.R. Smith, former two-time champion with the Lakers and I believe the Cavs, former shooting guard in the NBA, former teammate of LeBron James, he put out this tweet on Friday, and I thought it was real interesting. Don't fall for it. Now, if you notice, that's not Dan Hurley's actual official Twitter handle or X handle or whatever you want to call it, formerly Twitter, but now X. And but J.R. Smith, he put that out. And doing the research for this, I didn't even realize that J.R. Smith played for Dan Hurley at St. Patrick's when he was in high school. So he kind of has a relationship with him. But again, I'm going to put this back up here. I thought it was real interesting that he would tweet out, don't fall for it. And what does that mean? Don't fall for being the Lakers head coach. I personally took it as a shot at LeBron, as in don't fall for going there to coach LeBron, because as we well know, coaching LeBron does not often end well for head coaches, whether it's dealing with LeBron and the fact he doesn't want to play within the system, dealing with LeBron and the fact that he's not coachable, dealing with LeBron and the fact that the Lakers don't want to let him go and are likely to draft Bronny James into the fold this year in the NBA draft. And that's going to be another problem because Bronny James is a young guy who needs development. And he's a young guy who's probably going to need a lot of correction over time for him to end up becoming the player that he's capable of being. And let me make it clear, I think he's very capable of becoming a very good player. Not a superstar, nowhere near like his dad, but a very good player. And so with Dan Hurley being the head coach there. And this was supposed to just be a quick thought on Dan Hurley, but kind of getting carried away. But anyway, with Dan Hurley being the head coach there and the type of coach that he is, and J.R. Smith would know this as well as anyone, because again, he played for him in high school. I suppose he's saying, like, don't fall for it. Don't even, walk into that, because coaching LeBron, that's a whole nother thing. And why do I think that he's referring to LeBron? Because if you go back on the channel, you can actually check and see the show I did with J.R. Smith, actually talking about what it's like to be in an organization with LeBron. Basically, everybody else is the scapegoat, so on and so forth. So you can go check that out. But anyway, the point is, Dan Hurley ended up saying no to the Lakers. I think they offered him 6 years, $70 million over the weekend here. And so he made his decision today. And personally, I also always felt like he was using this Lakers thing to get leverage for UConn to give him the type of deal that he was looking for in terms of an extension. So he says he's going to stay at UConn. He's going to try to three-peat. College basketball is wide open. I don't see why he can't. Should be interesting. So, yep, Danny Hurley said no to the Lakers. And as a Celtics fan, I'm not going to be objective in this moment. It makes me quite happy to see that they're still stuck without a head coach, and they're just kind of floating along. And even though they have two of the better players in the NBA, in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, it doesn't look like success will be visited upon the Los Angeles Lakers anytime soon in the form of a championship. All right. Okay. So that's that. All right. Now let's get to what this live is supposed to be about. And that's the NBA Finals Game 2. So I wanted to kind of wrap that up and touch on it. And so we have the Finals Game 2 with the Boston Celtics coming out with a 105-98 win. And now this one was much more competitive from the outset than Game 1 was. Game 1, we saw the Celtics come out, basically punch them in the mouth and then blitz them with a bunch of three-pointers, etc. There you see Paul Pierce and Shaquille O'Neal, both former Celtics at the game. Obviously, Paul Pierce, a former champion with the Celtics, and Shaquille O'Neal playing with Boston at the end of his career. Anyway, we saw Luka Doncic have a heck of a game. I think 32, 11, and 11 in this one. Did all he could. And really, the Mavericks, they had a lot of balance overall. 5 guys in double figures, so they did everything they could do. But it just seems like they're kind of outmatched in this series, and they're just not going to be able to okay. In my estimation, I don't think they're going to be able to win this just because of the way that Boston matches up with Denver and with Dallas. And they're letting not letting, but Luka's getting his, right? He's averaging what? He's averaging 30 in this game, and he's averaging 30. And so in this series, and so he's doing his thing. Oh, looks like G wants to come in. All right. So yeah, Luka's averaging 30 in this thing. And so we're looking at this guy and we're saying, well, he's getting his, but where's the help? Now, last night he got the help. Again, he got 5 guys in double figures, but the guy he needs most to have the big games is Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving, for the second game in a row, he had 16 points and 7 of 18 from the floor, 0 of 3 from three-pointer. He's not being able to make these shots. And now that's 13 straight losses, I think, to the Boston Celtics. That Kyrie's got. So that's a tough spot. And basically, Luka can continue to get his, by the way, 8 turnovers last night as well. Luka can continue to get his, but if he's not getting the help that he needs from Kyrie Irving, well, then it's just not going to be able to work out. So I don't know what he's going to do. Now, on the flip side, you look at it, the Celtics, again, so balanced. And realistically, I'm surprised because Tatum, 6 for 22 last night, 1 for 7 from 3, but he had 9 rebounds and 12 assists. So he almost had a triple-double last night. Limited the turnovers, only had 3 of those. But he's not shooting the ball well, but he's still being an impact player in this series. led the team in rebounds in game one, led the team in assists with 12 in game two. So nothing wrong with that. Um, so we see that Tatum is not shooting well, but he's still being a contributor. And the scary thing is the Celtics are still able to win. Why? Because they have versatility with players that can contribute, and they're not so coming into this series, I thought one of the things that needed to happen was that the Celtics needed to be blitzing Luka, trapping him, taking the ball out of his hands as much as possible, throwing double teams at him from all angles. But the Celtics are saying, no, we got wing defenders all over the place. We got guys that can defend him and will attempt to defend him at every turn. So we don't have to double team him. And that was pretty impressive, right? And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, oh, all right, cool. They don't have to do it everywhere he goes. This is a team that we always talk about. Well, I always talk about how in the modern NBA, I don't like switching to pick and roll, but this is a team that has the type of defenders that they can switch to pick and roll. And then also, you don't know who's going to be your contributors offensively every night. And last night we saw Drew Holiday go 11 and 14 from the floor, 2 or 4 from three, and score 26 points and pull down 11 rebounds. So this is such a total team effort from the Celtics. This is the type of thing that you love to see. This is the type of thing that you love to see in terms of this is the type of thing that you love to see in terms of a team playing like a team. And so even though last night was a situation where you got all five starters in double figures for Dallas, it just wasn't enough. Like the scoring has to come from somewhere else. And I saw something interesting when G and I were talking the other night. One of the things I was saying was they need to get Tim Hardaway Jr. in there because he's a guy that can get hot and provide you some offense. But Jason Kidd, for whatever reason, is still going to Maxi Kleber and Dante Exum. These guys aren't providing you much of anything offensively. So there, in my estimation, is something going on as to why Tim Hardaway Jr. is not playing. Also, Markieff Morris, I'm not sure what's going on there now. I think Marcus Morris is the better of the Morris twins, but still, I mean, that's not a guy who can't play. So some of Jason Kidd's coaching decisions in terms of how he's doling out the minutes are kind of curious to me. I don't know why he's doing some of the things that he's doing. Really can't figure it out, but I guess it is what it is. So yeah, like I said, we're looking at this and we're saying, man, now the Celtics are up 2-0. And at the end of that game, it was tight. And so I'll also say we had that big block at the end of the game with Jaylen Brown and Derek White on the breakaway. And some people are saying that I was talking to G about it earlier. He was saying that that was a foul because with the push in the back, it basically takes away a player's ability to finish with confidence, right? Because now he's concerned about it, how is he going to hit the floor? Is he possibly going to, hit the backboard, etc.? So that's a foul that should be called. And yes, it's a foul that should be called, but I'm not upset that the referees, the officials didn't call it because they pretty much called the end of that game the way they've been calling the whole game all day, right? And so it's not like they were playing the whistle tight the whole time, but then they let the Celtics get away with one. They called it how they've been calling it, so I'm not mad that whistle didn't get blown. Right? If it had, I'd have been like, well, it was a foul, but so far the officiating has been consistent. Now you see the Celtics up 2-0 in this series, and again, I talked about how they were up 2-0 a few years ago, 2022 with against Golden State, and then they literally gave away the next 4 games, and Golden State won, and Steph got his long-awaited Finals MVP, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a situation where obviously Dallas is in dire straits heading home. We know that role players generally play better at home. Uh, Down 0-2, it's desperation, right? Because we know that if they go down 0-3, well, nobody's ever come back from that. There's no chance. Well, I'm not going to say there's no chance. The great Nelson Mandela said, everything seems impossible until it is done, right? But it is highly, highly unlikely that they can come back from an 0-3 deficit. And we saw that in the last series, right? Minnesota was able to scrape out one win, but they got closed out in game 5. So, obviously, it is desperation. You're down 0-2 when you go back home. If you're the Mavericks, you have to get that win. Kyrie Irving has to come up big because, again, so far, Luka's been doing his thing. Now, 8 turnovers, that's not going to help, But if if Dallas is to have any chance whatsoever, Kyrie Irving has to figure out a way to be effective in this game. Now, here's the other thing: if you're the Celtics, you saw Kristaps Porzingis wasn't nearly as impactful in this second game. I think he only had 12 points off the bench, 4 of 7 shooting, 12 points. He didn't make a three, and we also saw that throughout the game he began to limp a little bit. He played 23 minutes. So maybe we're not sure about the status of that calf injury. He may have re-aggravated it. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Not so sure. But we're going to see how much minutes he has and how effective he's going to be in playing that game 3. Now, if I'm the Celtics and I check him out today and I'm concerned about the status of that calf, you're up 2-0. I don't think you need to press. Maybe you can even sit him and not have him play because you don't want to ruin that anymore. And then maybe you need him later in the series. So I let him play. I'm sorry, I let him sit. Even if Dallas manages to win one at home, it's still 2-1. Then you can make another decision because, as you see, what is there like 3 days in between these games now in the NBA Finals? Next game is Wednesday night, so you let him sit. You have plenty of time, and then you can make a decision going into Game 4 on whether or not you play him, if you need to play him, etc., depending on how the series is going at that point. That's my thought. So yeah, um, that's what I would do. So uh, I'm just man, I don't know. I'm I'm very very I don't want. I'm not too. I think Dallas is a team that we've seen that can come back. Dallas is a team that can go, but again, it's all about Kyrie Irving. We have to see what Kyrie is going to be capable of doing here. Not what he's capable of doing, because we know what he's capable of doing. We have to see him do something and actually be a key contributor to this series and to this team. Because if they don't get a big game from him, they're going to go down 0-3, and then this thing's going to be over. They're going to get swept. And so that's my thoughts on it. Just like I said, wanted to come in and give these thoughts. And yeah, so that's about it. Make sure you are liking and subscribing to the channel. Make sure you're here Saturday night, 7 p.m. We're definitely gonna do a live. May do another one Wednesday night at 7. Not sure yet, but I think definitely have some things that I want to talk about. So I'm gonna get back with you next episode, and I'm out. Peace.